ready.
This is Colin Digits. I'm here live in the Digitsclub, and today we got Afonso here from KDLaunch. Welcome.
Thank you, man. Nice to be here.
I hope you are as excited as we are. Obviously, a launchpad on the Kadena blockchain, something we see more and more often, like the new chains that are upcoming, right? Bringing tremendous opportunity into the crypto world and also doing really well. So could you give us a little bit of an introduction about KDLaunch, about yourself, about the team?
So KDLaunch, as you mentioned, is a launchpad on Kadena. We are currently the only launchpad that is doing launches, so to say. So we're the first one to came live. We operate on Kadena as we feel that, yeah, you mentioned there are a lot of new layer ones, a lot of emerging layer ones, but we feel that Kadena is the one to be in for the future. For myself, I joined first just as a community manager to help out the guys with moderation of Telegram and Discord. But then, I mean, the projects start growing, and I have a bit of experience with crypto and with doing project management. And so I jumped into project management. I also host KDLaunch, which is a YouTube series that we do where we interview people. And yeah, we now have a full management team and are growing.
Awesome.
Yeah.
How did you experience it, basically going through that journey? Because basically, like you said, you got in maybe one of the more casual roles, and then you basically grew to the position. How did the company develop, and what were your thoughts to basically get like so deeply involved?
It was really natural. So I was an investor in KDL at first. So I joined the Telegram as anyone joins to hear about the project. I thought that it was a good investment opportunity because it's Kadena. There's not a lot of projects going on, so the demand would be high because it's the first, right? And then I went to talk with one of the founders, the Germinator, because I had some issues with the tokenomics. I told him, man, this is a really low raise. I think you guys will struggle with this. And he was like, oh, really? We had our doubts about it, but we didn't want to raise too much and kind of rip off people. We wanted to raise enough to build. And I'm like, yeah, but I think it's a little short because demand is so high that the price will skyrocket once you put it on a DEX, right? So you list it. And so he's like, oh, thanks, man. And by the way, if you can help with the chat, and I see you're good there. And I'm like, sure. And I got in, and then they needed to do some sort of tutorials, and I said, I'll do it for you. And I started working with them. And then we brought in Laney, we brought in Mo, we brought in the whole team and started to, so it's really organic growth, so to speak.
Perfect. West, like on the team's background, could you give us a rundown of the team, their experience, and the locations where they're from?
Sure. As for the founders, they're not publicly doxed. They are doxed by Kadena and by most of the project owners. So most of the projects know who they are, but they are not publicly doxed yet. I think soon they'll be ready for that. There are two founders. They are developers, both of them. So it started as two developers building on Kadena. And then it grew with me, Laney, and Mo, which are the core management team. And we now also have like a team of moderators and guys that help out in the background. And we're still growing. So we are still bringing in new people for marketing. And actually, that's kind of the next step, is to figure out where to grow and how to make this successful project into a very successful project, so to speak.
Right. And what about the geography? Is it like worldwide, or do you guys have a focus on the team?
So I'm from Portugal, and the other two guys from the management team are from Australia.
Oh, all right.
So it's kind of like opposite, right?
Yeah.
We have some folks from France and from the US. I think we have one guy from US. So It's
And what about the founders specifically? Do they want to say or no?
I cannot
No,
tell
okay,
you.
fair enough.
You'll
But I
know
think
soon.
though,
You'll know soon.
truly, yeah, I think truly like the way the crypto space is evolving, right? As a serious project, you're going to put it out there. I think the docs is like inevitable. I know a lot of like even projects we talk with, they're like, oh, I'm not sure, because obviously there's a dark side to it, right? It's like, oh, you're exposed. What if something goes wrong? I get it, right? I get it. But at some point, your company is in a level where when you start to take in millions of dollars in terms of investments, right? People want to see like, who am I actually going to give the money to
Yeah,
ultimately, right? Because you look like a likable guy, but we're not giving you the money
of course, of
ultimately,
course.
right?
Yeah,
So,
yeah. I'm
but
not the
yeah, it's
founder. Yeah.
natural. They will get more and more pressure. At some point, they'll be like, "I fuck it, let's just do it."
Something I think that it can put investors' mind at ease is that they are doxxed by Kadena themselves.
Yeah. I
Like
mean, that's good.
Will
And even for the
Martino.
projects.
Yeah, and the other projects all know them. We have had meetings where they are with the cam on, and so everyone knows them. It's just the public that doesn't know them yet. But I think it's just a matter of time. There's no
natural process. It's all good.
Yeah.
What about the pools? Because I did look at the pools. You guys had a good run. Before we dive into the actual platform, one thing that I'm extremely curious about is you said the reason we chose Kadena as one of the highest potential layer ones, right?
Yeah.
Upcoming. Of course, we spoke with other Kadena projects before. We know, well, I don't want to say all about Kadena, but we know a good amount of information about Kadena. In a short summary, what would you think are the main core components that Kadena has, which other platforms don't have?
Well, regarding layer ones, Kadena is the only scalable proof of work layer one. So I think it's a bonus with all other that are proof of stake. And I think proof of stake is kind of, people think of proof of stake as the upgrade of blockchain, but it's actually a retrocessive in my opinion, because proof of stake is the system we have for so long with the banks and with people who own the funds kind of running the show, right? So I think proof of stake is where you need to actually contribute to the network's security to be able to participate in the ecosystem. So I think this is the major advantage Kadena has on any other layer one. And then there's Pact, which is kind of amazing in terms of programming. I'm not a developer myself, but I have some.
It's the code, right?
Yeah, you instead of Solidity, the smart contracts are written in Pact, and Pact is kind of crazy how good it is. The issue now it's documentation, which actually Kadena just released a Medium article, I think yesterday, stating that this is what they're really focusing on, having documentation for developers, having this whole process of bringing in developers into the system made easier. Because right now it's a bit of a hard time for people to start coding in Pact because there's no documentation. There's hardly any developers that are used to develop in
you
Pact.
would basically, is it like this, that you would need help from Kadena to get started like that they kind of need to hold your hand?
You can do it yourself. I mean, the founders of KDL did it themselves. They didn't ask help from Kadena. It's just that it takes longer.
Right.
The process it's very strenuous because it's like learning a new language, just looking at books for that language without having kind of a teacher, so to say. So it's the language itself. It's not hard, but you need some sort of commitment to begin, because you're looking at something without comments, without anyone telling you what does this function do, where do I start, so it's kind of tricky.
You know what you wanted to do, but then it still needs to work, of course. Yeah,
exactly. So this is something that I think will push Kadena, that and the 100 million commitment from Kadena to give out to projects, the grants. So those two things I think will push Kadena to the stratosphere. Just a matter of time.
Because I think yesterday I made a video on the top 100 crypto, and I think it entered 99 yesterday. So it's there, right? Yeah. It just needs to go a little bit higher.
It's on a limbo.
It's definitely interesting to see, because Of course, there's a lot of layer one movement in general, and it will really, time will tell, right, which direction we're going. But a lot of people are very bullish on Kadena, so that's definitely the good news. When you would look around, right, on Kadena ecosystem, there's already quite a lot of building going on. If you would look at the launchpads, you mentioned you have that first mover advantage. How did you experience that so far in the ecosystem?
In terms of
But in terms of
success,
the
or
demand, yeah, success, because I saw that almost all the pools were sold out when the market was still normal, right?
yeah,
Everything got sold out 100%.
yeah,
So for a new launchpad, that's amazing.
yeah. We sold out for the first two launches. Actually, the first three, if you count with KDL, but the fourth one, which just ended 2 days ago or 3 days ago, it didn't sell out, but it was actually an enormous amount of KDA raised. The thing is, with this market conditions, KDA is not worth as much, so it doesn't look as impressive in terms of dollar value. But if
Right.
you think about it, myself, for example, I have a Kadena from, I don't know, 3 months ago, 4 months ago. It's my Kadena, and I keep putting some Kadena on my wallet. But if I have to spend 400 Kadenas for a $800 investment, it's different than spending like 100 Kadenas for a 1,000 investment,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
it's really hard for projects right now to raise because of that, and
Makes
we
sense.
gotta understand that. But so far, it's been a very successful journey because we didn't sell the last one, but it was a really good raise. The projects that we have so far that we have launched, I think they are amazing, and this is something that we really want to focus on. We are not here to launch projects that are, traps for investors. We want to launch projects with a great future and that have a really defined roadmap, so that when you invest in these projects, that you don't have to rush to sell them on launch. You can
Right.
relax and let the investment grow, and you'll be good because you're in good hands. We have had a lot of projects that submitted proposals to launch with us, and most of them we just say no because they're not good, and we don't.
What would be like your, do you know anything about the project selection due diligence process that KDLaunch does?
Yeah, we're part
Yeah,
of. Yeah, we're part of B and Laney,
awesome.
and so
What do
we.
you do when you get all these proposals? I can imagine you're sitting at your desk and you just get these emails of new proposal, new proposal. You have the whole stack.
Yeah,
How do you navigate that?
fortunately, they're not coming. They don't come to me. I just get.
Okay.
I miss the first selection, which is like the garbage. The garbage just
Right.
goes away. But when there's a project that might have potential, we look at a lot of things like tokenomics. First of all, we have a lot of projects that are not on Kadena, and for now we don't really look at projects that are not on Kadena because it doesn't make
Because
sense.
you see that quite often. I see a lot of launch pads that dedicate to one chain. They do the raising Kadena, but then they just drop the tokens on the Binance Smart Chain.
Yeah,
Right? It's like
that's a
that's
no-go for
not
us.
something you would do.
No,
Okay.
no, no.
Why is that? Because then you would be able to launch a lot more projects. Is there like a philosophy behind it?
I mean, for now, I think the goal is um, to promote Kadena and promote the
Okay.
Kadena ecosystem. So
Yeah, makes sense.
I think it would be kind of a cheap stab if we started just launching BSC and Ethereum. It
Yeah,
doesn't make
it
sense.
would be more like a cash grab kind of thing.
Yeah, I don't
How
even
you can.
think I don't even think our users and KDL holders wanted that. So I don't think that's not our mindset, and that's not how we market ourselves. So it doesn't really make sense. I also have no interest in raising other. This is me personally. I would never invest into BSC or Ethereum because I don't see a future on those investments. I see a lot better future on the Canadian investments. So we are focused on that. So this is one of the things we look at. What's the chain? What's the layer one they're launching on? This is an excluding factor. What's the tokenomics and the founders, if they're doxed, at least to us, if they're willing to dox to us, previous experience on the kind of project they're launching, And there's
But
a lot of
let's say they wouldn't want to docs. Is that something then you wouldn't launch, or are there like circumstances?
it's it's a process. So if they don't want to docs to us, it kind of gets hard, right? It's hard if they don't want to docs us. And the thing is, if they don't want to get docs, I understand. I mean, the founders of our project are not docs to everyone, but if they want to doc, they don't want to docs with us. I don't think KDLaunch is the best project for them to launch in. They have, for example, Back Alley, which is a permissionless.
That sounds very dodgy.
No, it's. I think there's market for everything, right? There's
Sure.
market for Shivas and there's markets for Timpi.
And scams go to back alley.
No, no, I don't mean scams. I mean meme coins, meme
Okay.
coins, or
Yeah.
So I don't want to be saying that they shouldn't launch projects with undoxed people. No, I just think there's a place for everyone.
Sure.
And that's the beauty of crypto and blockchain, is that everyone can do it and everyone can invest if they want to. It's your own risk. So we just don't want to that for our holders in particular.
Makes perfect sense. So non-doxed teams, no.
No, very hard, very hard. It would have to be an amazing project with an amazing tokenomics, and we would have to make sure that they are legit, which might be a way to do that, but I don't know how, but might be a way to do it.
On that regard, like we see a lot of launch pads that have, so most of these pads nowadays, they have the doxing requirement, right? So they need to have at least like some incorporation documents, passport scans, like that kind of stuff, see the people on the calls. Yeah, fully KYC them, even if it's a middleman or not, it doesn't really matter. Would you have something like an insurance policy on the pad, or is it not at that scale yet? Because we see launch pads like the more frequent launches like Comunitas, these type of pads, CDeFi is coming with an insurance protocol to protect investors from lower quality launches. Because I understand, you have a big staff, you do your due diligence, you do what you can do, but you can never truly, you're not going to take an airplane around the world, shake all these hands of all these people trying to launch a project, right? It's just not worth it. Is that something you would consider, or you would say it's more something for the later roadmap once you have done more launches?
Yeah, I would say that it will probably be on the future. Actually, I've never discussed this with them, but it's something we for sure can look at, because the main goal of a Launchpad is to assure its users that the investment is safe, right? So that's something.
I have a cool suggestion for you. I don't know if it's my place to say, but I talk with a lot of Launchpad founders. Yeah. So basically, the best method I've seen is when basically you do a 200K raise and the vesting is 10% per month for the investor, right? So what they do is they also vest the company on the same vesting. So the payment is basically being held with an agreement that they're not allowed to use it for liquidity pools. Right, that's the whole concern. Like, who has control over the money? So it's basically sitting in a wallet and it's basically vested on the same smart contract to the company as. So the tokenomics needs to be adjusted, right, according to if that money is to be used.
Yeah, that would make sense.
It's super fair.
Yeah, it's totally fair. It's something we should definitely talk about. So far we're not very concerned with the projects we launched in particular, but I mean, in the future, that there may come a time where we need to have that kind of security system in place. So we need to think about it for sure. And thanks for the suggestion, by the way.
I got all kinds of random stuff. it just comes to mind, and I'm like, okay, let me tell you. When we spoke about the team. What about projects, right? Kadena, obviously, I don't want to say ready to blow up, but one thing I know, I feel like, I can never say I know for sure, what I feel like is that when we see the next bullishness, then Kadena will go, right? It will
I feel the same. I feel the same.
What type of projects are you willing to launch on KDLaunch? Or is it like you look for utility or specifically, or anything that would support Kadena? Or is it something you have preference on as well?
Yeah, so we are focused and we try to bring projects with utility, and the more real life utility, the best. So one thing for me personally that I always thought it was kind of confusing in crypto is like, you invest in pancake swap cake, or you invest in some token, and then the bear market comes, and what's the utility for that token? when all of the utility is linked to only crypto and blockchain, once the money goes out of crypto and blockchain, what's left for that token, right? So if you look at the projects we launched like Timpi and DocuShield, they have real life utility, whether the market is green, red, doesn't matter, because you will use those tokens for something, right? For their services, for staking to other people. For Timpi, for example, you use the tokens to pay for ads like companies, okay? So for DocuShield, you use the tokens to buy storage for your documents, to store them online. So this is the kind of projects we prefer to launch. Of course, we also launched KDS, which is our DEX token, which is kind of what I was saying before. It's an inside token, but it's also useful and also has its place. So we need to the best projects we can launch are utility and real life utility projects, but we are not excluding projects in the DeFi space, metaverse. We are always looking for metaverse projects and play to earn games. So yeah, all kind of projects. We try to focus more on something we know for sure will be a success, which in my opinion is real life utility tokens.
Makes sense. Yeah, I think there's something to say for all of these things, right? But as long as you have like one focus, it just simplifies the selection process, but also what investors can expect. Because the thing is, if you love the utility side of things, then you know, okay, this is where we focus. We see a lot of launchpads, they have such a wide range of like, okay, then it's like a video game, then it's like they're doing like a layer 2, then it's like some randomness, and then you really have to be picky of like which direction is this going.
But the thing is, on other layer 1s, on other chains, you get to be picky. For example, you mentioned CDFI. They went to gaming, right?
Right.
But they went to gaming because how many launchpads are there on BSC?
Many.
Many, right? For now, we are the only ones launching projects. And even if when Hypercent comes alive, it's us and Hypercent. So we are 2, and there's not that many projects. Like we cannot focus on real utility projects, or maybe next month we don't have a project to launch. You know, so we right now the Kadena ecosystem is not that big that we can afford to do that. But I can see that in the future. I can see us growing, Kadena growing, and all of a sudden there's too many launches to do, and like okay, maybe maybe we focus on real life utility and whatever, and 9% focus on gaming. We don't know, but something like that might happen in the future. I'm not saying that it won't, but for now, I think we need to tackle fronts.
Fair enough. You mentioned Hypercent. How is the relationship between KDLaunch and Hypercent? Is there arch enemies or nemesis, or is it friendly?
We are competitors. Let's not pretend we're not, and we want to be more successful than them. Of course, it's all part of the game, but the relationship is good. I mean, there's banter back and forth, but I think they are doing good for the Kadena as well. So I don't have any issues with them.
But you're better than them.
Sure, I think so. I prefer KDLaunch, and but it's, I mean, everyone has their
opinion. Pros and cons. Opinions. True.
And I think there's space for both. Like they are more of gamified launchpad where you need to collect stardust and do this and that. So it's kind of more all over the place in that regards. And we are a bit more simple and more direct. We have a tier system and just do this, that, and you have access. But some people prefer our system, some people prefer theirs. Now it remains to be seen if theirs works, because we have launched, they haven't. So
I found some little steps.
I mean, you gotta do it. We gotta do it.
Yeah. No, it's all good. It's all good. I mean, like we spoke with the guys from Hypercent. They're doing great. They're building something truly inspiring, I think. But you're 100% right. You have already launched. You have made your point there, right? It's like the launches speak for themselves. And ultimately, I think from an investor point of view, it comes down to selected launches, launch performance, communication. I think one of the great things. You mentioned that you take ownership on KDLaunch after communication. What do you feel like you're doing, which other launchpads are not doing when it comes to communicating properly with investors?
So that others are not doing. I don't want to go too much into what others are not doing because I don't want to be that guy. But
Oh, well, what you're doing well, at least what you're trying to
yeah,
focus on, because you just obviously you look around what others are doing and you're like, oh,
exactly.
maybe that's not working. So
Sure. We try to communicate as much as possible. For example, had a look at our Twitter, and our communications on Twitter were on the low side in terms of volume. So we did ramp up that side because we want to have a lot of interaction with the community. We try to be, and we have succeeded in being the most transparent possible. So anytime there's some sort of concern, some sort of issue, we go straight to communication. We write an article, we post it on Twitter because we want people to be able to respond to us and speak to us. And so I think that's the most important on a not only launchpads, every crypto project, because people are always
sure.
afraid, right?
Yeah.
In crypto, people are, and rightfully so, always afraid. So we want to have this kind of direct communication line where if people feel the need to, oh, I'm afraid because of this, come talk to us. We are always 100%
So how would that
transparent.
work? If you say come talk to us, what happens then?
So we have the Telegram, which anyone can speak and speak their mind. We uh, talk to everyone. Sometimes there are people who are a bit, annoying because that's how it is. But we let everyone speak their mind and reply accordingly. Of course, if you are not respectful of others, you get muted, as you know.
Only natural.
Only natural, but we try to let everyone speak their mind and respond. And so yeah, that's kind of our goal. Something that comes along with it, and that since you mentioned what are you trying to do in terms of communication, we are also trying to focus on bringing people from outside Kadena into Kadena. I think this is the next step in on our strategy, in our marketing strategy, because Kadena is so good, and there's so little, so few people on the community, that I think we need to really expand on that and try to show, for example, Luna holders, what a great place Kadena is to invest and also to build. I don't know if you've seen this also, but 10% of that $100 million grant that Kadena is launching will be to help developers from chains that are not here anymore. I think they meant Luna. They didn't put it outright like that, but so developers from Luna will have an advantage if they want to build on Kadena. So I think that should be our goal, and not just KDL, but all of Kadena projects should try and bring people from outside Kadena, because that's how the project and Kadena itself will grow in the future.
That makes sense. I mean, definitely a lot of room still, right, for all these projects to come on board, to grow alongside the ecosystem. When we would look at the current sentiment, crypto moves fast, but as of the last couple of weeks, it's kind of moving slow. What is the plan for KDLaunch to, inevitably the next 1, 2, 3, maybe even 12, 16 months? Did you guys adjust the course of the planning of the roadmap, or are there certain things that are being pulled forward, pulled back? How does that work?
So in terms of roadmap, from a Launchpad perspective, it's always the same, right? Find projects, launch them. But as a bigger company, right? Because we don't have only a Launchpad, we have a DEX, and we can probably have something else in the future. So I think this time where the market is kind of slow and people are, a bit risk averse, it's the time to really focus on what I was saying. How can we show Kadena and KDLaunch to the rest of the world? Because yeah, the market is not good, but the smart investors know that this is the time to DCA into good projects. And so that's kind of the approach that we're going to have. Like, look, we're launching projects. We're launching in a phase that they are kind of cheap for normal standards. So if you launch a project on a bull market, you get a $2 million raise. Maybe now you just get a $500,000 raise, but that means you're buying cheaper, right? You're buying the tokens cheaper. So this is kind of the approach we're thinking of now, like focus on launching quality projects and conveying this message that Kadena is a good project to bet now into like 1 year, 2 years time, and Kadena projects inside it, of course.
So it doesn't necessarily, well, of course, the market conditions matter, but for like the longevity of the Launchpad, there are other business assets, right, for the company as a whole. You mentioned the KD swap.
Yep. So
what's that about?
KD swap is the DEX that was launched by KD Labs team, so to speak, after KDLaunch. So after we launched KDL, there was a need to list on CoinMarketCap and CoinGecko, which is where most of the world can see new projects and investigate. It's a tool most people use to research projects, right? But we couldn't do that because there was no exchanges where we could list that were listed on CoinMarketCap. And so the idea was once KDX was online, we could list on KDX and we would be on CoinMarketCap. But KDX delayed once again after March, and the guy said, well, we just look at Kadena swap code, and we think we can do this really fast. We can do a good DEX that we can launch, and then we can put that DEX on CoinMarketCap and CoinGecko, and all of the projects that we launch with KDL will be listed on KDSwap, and then we can put them on CoinMarketCap. So it's good for us, and it's good for the ecosystem, and we don't depend on other projects launching or not, or delaying more or not. So we just do this, and even if they launch that later, there's space for 2 DEXs on one ecosystem, of course. So that's not an issue. So they moved forward and they did a great job. I don't know if you've looked at KDSwap, but it's beautiful and it works amazing.
I'm a business guy, right? So I'm interested in like the cash flow. Is it like, apart from like the, let's say 2.5% transaction fee on a DEX, right? Something like this, or is it 0.25 or 3%?
0.3%, 0.3%.
0.3. Oh,
that's the fee you pay.
That's good.
Yeah. That's standard for DEXs, I think.
What other revenue models are there to DEX?
Revenue models. So I'm not the perfect guy to speak about this. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I can ask them later because I'm not sure how they do that. I'm sure they thought of it because other DEXs. That's kind of a good question that I need to understand what other DEXs do. I would say so. The 0.3% fee is actually not for the DEX itself. It's for the liquidity providers. So in this case, if you provide liquidity to a pool, you get the 0.3% on every swap. So that's not even the revenue they're having. But probably I would probably assume it will do with marketing and marketing strategy. So for example, on DocuShield, we had the launch on the Launchpad, and there was a banner on the DEX where you could see DocuShield apply for the Launchpad. So this can be a tool of marketing. Also, probably if you want a spot on like the featured list of tokens, that could be another. So I don't think this is kind of been discussed lengthily yet, because the idea first was to have a place to list tokens. Then think about that, because
but there's like so many opportunities still then in that case.
Yeah, that's right.
Fair. You mentioned previously, you said KDLaunch, KDSwap, and something. What does that mean? Is that something being built right now?
It's being
considered
and slowly developed, but I cannot say much more than that. But it will be great. So
the whole idea is then for the at least KD token, right? Your
KDL?
ecosystem, KDL. That's right. Thanks. Because the KDL is then for KDLaunch, the KDS is then for the DEX, right? Would then the new product come with a new token, or would it go under the KDL?
I don't think there will be a need for a new token. Probably, nah. I don't think there will be a need for a new token, at least for the project I'm thinking. They might be thinking of other new projects that they didn't even tell me about, because the guys are always coming up with ideas to do new stuff. And I think that's great. And now that we have this big time, because the bear market's not, I don't think it's going to end anytime soon. Maybe they'll come up with something new. I don't know. But for the particular one I'm thinking about, I don't think there'll be a token, any token needed, new token needed.
Sure, that makes sense. If you would basically summarize, right, on the bullishness of Kadena is one, right? So Kadena is going to be huge potentially, and therefore you have a perfect fit, right? You only launch projects that are on Kadena, right? They need to be doxed. You run through the tokenomics. You run through the utility point of view is a major topic in that consideration. And then, of course, with the bearish sentiment, right? There's no extreme rush to just launch any type of project, right? It has to be of the highest quality.
Yep.
Is there anything else on this list that you would like to add?
For the selection process, right? For the vetting process, so to say.
Yeah.
I think it touched everything. And I mean, one thing that it's not measurable, but it's kind of something that it's very important. It's who is the people building the project. And you know, this is kind of cliche, but you invest in people, you don't invest into projects, right? And so when you see people that are really passionate about what they do, and you can sense that, right? When you talk to them with this kind of one-on-ones, you see them and you can see if they're just let's do this and we'll raise a lot of money, and it's like or you can see that no, and then it will be an NFT and we'll go this and we'll route them there. And when you see this kind of passion in people, you know that even if they don't raise the hard cap, and they even if they're just on the verge of not making it, they will push forward and they'll do it. And this is the people we want to bring in, you know, this is the people we want to have as partners. And so far, I mean, you look at Timpe and DocuShield, and Gareth and Jörg from Timpe and Adrian from DocuShield. If you speak to them, you know that they want to do this so much and they want to go forward, and they are really committed and are really good. So this is like the final vetting process for me. And for the rest of the team, is like, is this guy for real or not? And when you see that passion, you just know you're fine, and just go forward with it.
Fair enough. Good summary. All in all, for the KDLaunch Launchpad as a whole, right? Is there anything on what we have gone through? Because I'm basically out of my list of questions. I think you picked up everything quite thoughtfully, quite also in a good interactive style. No tremendously long speeches, but that's great. Is there anything else you would like to add, Afonso, what we perhaps didn't pick up so far?
Just to first of all, thank you for having me here, and then just to add that we are really grateful for the community that actually has been really supportive with everything. Sometimes there are delays, sometimes there are some things that don't go as good as planned, and we have an amazing group of community people that are just there pushing us forward. I think it goes both ways, because we just present them good projects and they are grateful to us as well. So we have a strong community in that sense. And that's basically it. Just thanking the community. Shout out to the developers, to the founders, and to the rest of the team, because they're also great. I'm very lucky and blessed to be on this team.
Awesome, mate. Thank you so much for being here, Afonso. I'll make sure to get everything ready for you, and then I'll send it over. It was a pleasure talking with you. I hope once you have made some progress over the next couple of weeks, if not months, we can pick it up again, see where you are then, and see if Kadena has actually blown up as was in the cards.
Absolutely. Anytime, man. Just let us know.
All right, perfect. Thank you so much. Have a good day.
Okay, thank you.
See you. Cheers. Bye-bye.